Welcome, party people, to Tales from the Field. In sales, we all screw up. And it's in those moments that we screw up where we learn the most. And I'm committed to figuring out what that looks like to make it helpful and have some fun along the way. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome back to Tales from the Field. I've got a friend, colleague, sales aficionado. I don't know what else I can say about you, Connor Bush, but you are here and I am thrilled. For those that don't know you like I do, tell us who you are.
Absolutely glad to be here. Connor Bush, thanks you for the kind intro. I'm salesperson, father of one and one on the way here. I have a adorably chunky cat. And in my free time, I like a nice hike and a tasty beer. So glad to be on today.
I am absolutely delighted to have you. As you think back on your career, what is one of the larger sales fails or stumbles or whatever we want to call it? And why does that matter to you? Let's talk about it.
2017. So I landed an account manager job and they said, hey, we don't really have a role for this. We consolidated offices. Here's like 500 accounts who have fired us. We don't even know if they're open anymore. Start with this. Good luck. So that was my first day on the job. That was all my training. Get after it. Actually, no, funnier. They sent me to the wrong training. So they did send me for a week of training in Florida for a completely wrong part of the business. That was my sales training. So I learned how to do a job function that was not my own. But anyway, make the best of it. We're in sales. We're scrappy. We're go-getters. 2017 turns into 2018, turns into 2019. I have just about the biggest book of business at the company. It's a 500 and some person company at the time. But I wasn't in enterprise. I wasn't in transactional. Again, I started as this guy like, hey, good luck. And I think against everyone's foresight, I made out very well with that. So I had an all but nothing base salary. I was paid on a gross margin. But my goals, they reset every year. So I had the best year of all time. My goals are through the roof. And I think I was promoted 4 or 5 times. I was going to spend the rest of my life here. It was the best thing since sliced bread. Getting to the fail. So I get an email one day, the world's longest email. There's lawyers on copy. And my client says, hey, because of this thing that happened in 2015, the case finally settled. We lost. We are firing you. And this was about
from the company or a client?
No, so from my client, so I had this random book. I was not in enterprise. I had like hundreds of small, medium, transactional, whatever clients. And one of them that I just grew and grew made up about 30-something% of my margin that I was getting paid on. Okay. And they fired us because I guess we dropped the ball. Something happened. But they said, hey, OK, if this case goes in our favor and we get paid back, it was trucking software. So I guess, one of their trucks that was worth millions of dollars, exploded or crashed or something. No one was sure whose fault it was. But it turned out after the dust settled, a 4-year legal battle, they weren't getting their money back. So I guess before I'd even joined the company, their deal was, hey, if we lose this, we're firing you.
Did you know that expectation?
I had no idea. I inherited, a book of stuff and I made something out of it. So unbeknownst to me, we, try to salvage it. They're like, no, this was the terms. We're done. But my company wasn't about to, renegotiate how I was paid, what my goals were. So I had 30-something% of my book, which, is equivalent to 50 or 70 clients I'd have to bring on to fill that gap. So I went from making, a healthy 6 figures to my base, which was nothing. And so that was my sales fail, is I'm in this hole. I did not prepare for it. I allowed nearly 40% of my book to be one client. What do I do now? And that was my sales fail.
Oh, Connor, let's dig in. Let's I'm going to give you like the biggest hug through the technology that we are speaking through. Because we've all been there, right? And I, too, have learned that lesson, thank goodness, early on in my career. And it's why I preach the power of a pipeline, which leads me to probably a lesson you may or may not have learned about the power of a pipeline. I got to ask you, you had 40% of your eggs in this one big old basket. and that basket gets ripped away from you. And that feels real gross. And you're not having any changes to the way you get compensated or your goals. So 2 questions. 1, what did your pipeline look like? And let's be real. Be honest with us and the listeners. What did it look like for real? That's question number 1.
Full transparency here. No holding back. It did not. I didn't even know what a pipeline was. I had no formal sales training. I had one client support on my desk for my base that I'd earned, through stature. So it was myself and that person fielding all the ops. Didn't know what a pipeline was a little green fledgling at the time. So I was, in short, unprepared for that impact.
Do you know what a sales pipeline is now?
I've got 3x what I think I'll need.
All right.
That's my new rule.
All right. There you go. Yes. Okay. So that's devastating. Been there, felt it. I just, yeah. What do you do? So this happens. You figure it out. You look at your pipeline. You look at the goals and expectations, and you probably have a uh-oh moment. In that uh-oh moment, what happened?
Titled my self-memoir From President's Club to Lowest Performer. No, so in that uh-oh moment, turned myself in, flew my white flag, went to my boss, who's a VP of the organization. Hey, this happened. Now what? In short, they said, pick yourself up by your bootstraps, get over it and fix the situation. But, my lifestyle and expenses and things I had going on did not align with a base salary. And I had no pipeline. I was not prepared to weather the storm for 4, 6, 8 months to fix this, in short. So I went from the top performer of a whole company to leaving the company just because that's where I was at. So really unfortunate to so many things, to have to start over, have to learn a new thing, go to a new company or a new industry in my case. So yeah, this sales fail ended that path of my career, in short.
So in your mind, you're like, look, I can't recover from this. I don't want to recover from this. I've learned this and I've got to go somewhere else. That's your logic at the time.
Yeah. At the time it was, I physically cannot, would not have been able to withstand that period of recovery, really, unfortunately, because loved the organization. I was damn good at what I did. We had a great group of people. Hindsight, would I have done things differently? Sure, that's 2020. But no, at the time I said, oh, shoot, I'm going to be homeless in 3 months if I don't get out of here and go back to making close to what I was making.
So there's a lot to unpack in that last statement. Oh, shoot, I would have done things differently. Hindsight.
Yep.
Decided to leave. So I want to pick this apart together out loud to be helpful, because guess what? If you haven't been there, you probably will be there at some point, or somebody that's been there. So let's pause here and think about, what was the lesson that you learned at the time? And then I have another question after that. So that lesson right then, what was it?
I was under the impression that, that account and a few others that I had that really made up the bulk of what I had going on would never, ever go anywhere. To paint it probably as it was, I took them for granted. Oh, these are permanent clients. They've been here a decade. They're going to stay forever. Nothing could possibly change this. I counted on that as permanent weekly or monthly revenue for my book. That's the first mistake. Nobody is ever locked in 100% your client. Lesson number 1. Lesson number 2, because of lesson number 1, constantly have a pipeline. Always be prospecting. And I think, now my new comfy number, perhaps it's a little PTSD. I try to always have 3x of what I think I will need to make my goal ready to go, counting on closing that month. Because sure, 1x gets you there, but if you have attrition, if you have things like this occur, you're always ready. And guess what? If it doesn't occur, you're blessed. Now you're going to be blowing your goal out of the water. And I sure hope you have an accelerator on there. So my 2 lessons, pipeline and no client, no matter how great they are and how long they've been with you, is ever permanent.
Nothing lasts forever. And it's the hard truth, but it's the truth. And on top of that, I think the pipeline piece of, and I preach this, it's the consistent work to make sure that you've got a pipeline robust of short-term, near-term, and long-term opportunities so that you don't have to feel the way that you did. You don't have to leave a great job with great people that you really enjoyed, despite that big hiccup, right? That you don't have to chase your tail to try to get deals over the threshold through icky tactics at the end of the month, the end of the quarter, the end of the year. Our buyers can spot that a mile away, and it just makes you look foolish. And this is a big, small world. And if you want a long-term sales career, you got to think about those things, right? It's not just in the here and now, it's the bigger picture. So those are some serious lessons to be learned. And I'm glad that you learned them. I want to dig into the second part. Hindsight's 2020. I would have done things differently. What would you have done differently, my friend? I
came into that position, you know, the 6 hats I wore there. It was an exciting ride. I came in as an account manager of the rejects. There were a handful of current. Do
you have a T-shirt that says that?
Account manager of the rejects. We could make one. Make coffee cup too, right?
Yes.
So there were a few that were active, and I was so hungry, you know, BDR, SDR, new business mindset that I did not do the due diligence of meeting and understanding the current clients. The ones that were, even if they only had 1% of the business, like the case with the one who left us and I grew it, I didn't understand past, present, future, just like our pipeline. Where did the client come from? What are they doing today? Where do they want to go? So if you do inherit a book, if you do inherit a new territory, give everyone the same attention you would give a brand new prospect, is what I guess how I would have done things differently. So guess what? I would have known about this pending legal situation. I would have known about, you know, what later were things that blindsided me. So I would have approached the territory entirely differently.
Love that. And so let's talk about what you do today to make sure you don't get your rear end in that same slump, because that slump sucks. So let's break that down of now you've recovered. You're thriving. You've got baby number 2 on the way. You've got a fat cat. The cats don't get fat if you can't pay for the food. So you're doing well. You've recovered. What do you do today to get to that 3X so that you don't have to do any of the things that we talked about before?
I dive instead of cannonball. So when I was a young fledgling of a rep, they said, hey, here's this book. And I just said, great. Put it on my desk, started getting after it, jumped right in. What I do now is plan, and plan some more. Plan and prep. I, like many salespeople, completely disorganized, overly excited, ready to jump in and get our hands dirty. So I pump the brakes. I've broken it down to, I did the whole reverse method. Where do I want to be in a year from now? What do I have to do in the next 6 months, the next month, the next week? So I have written down to a T, what am I going to do maybe I took it a little extreme. What am I doing every hour of my day to accomplish what in a day to get me where I need to be? So I take things very calculated. I know what I'll be doing in a month from now, and I know what I'm doing today to get me where I need to be. So it's a calculated dive instead of a cannonball.
Well, and you know, there's 2 things that come to mind. So that famous Benjamin Franklin quote of, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And, you know, what you put into something is what you get out of it. And I think for anybody listening that's just getting into sales and thinking about what you went through, Connor, I was just kind of thrown into it. And actually, the little training that I got didn't even have really much to do with the role that I was in. It
was so funny.
You know, when I think about that, one of the best things that I can tell everyone from a 25-year sales career myself and selling over $100 million of revenue myself, I've made all sorts of mistakes. I've learned all sorts of things. But what I have learned is sales is the long game. It is consistent. It is doing the right work with the right people consistently. And you cannot take your foot off of that pedal. You're only as good as your last deal. And I hate to say that. It doesn't mean that you're not worthy. It doesn't mean that you're not good. But it does mean that you can celebrate what you just did. And that's phenomenal. And you should. Those are the moments on that roller coaster ride that make it all worthwhile. That being said, if you do not continue on, if you take your foot off that gas, it comes back like an icky boomerang. So let's think about your situation, Connor. It was a boomerang, and a really painful one at that. And that sucks, but it doesn't have to be that way if you do the things that we're talking about. So I have a question for you. Thinking through this whole scenario, and I call it the thorn and the rose, right? It's beautiful because you came out stronger for it. It's painful because you got pricked by the thorn. And a rose can be very beautiful. It can also hurt you if you pick it up the wrong way with the thorn. So for anybody that's listening to this, if you had one thing, or maybe two things, or three things, so 1 to 3 things that you want anybody listening to do because you've done it and it's worked, or you've done it and it hasn't worked and you want them to avoid it, what are the 1 to 3 things?
Thing number 1, invest in bettering yourself. And I do say that as broad. I mean it as broad as it sounds. So for me, I was waiting for my employer to train me. You know, I went to school for economics. I don't know a ton of colleges that have, hey, you get a sales degree. Most salespeople I know, you were an art major, a history major, whatever. So invest in bettering yourself.
Or criminal justice like me.
Or criminal justice. No, amen, right? We come from different walks. So don't wait for your organization to invest in you, invest in yourself. Go to communities like Thursday Night Sales. Read the books. Take the courses. I don't know if we can name companies or sponsors, but do online sales training boot camps and get certified. Because if you wait for someone to do it for you, they're going to send you to a trucking type training when you should be in sales training. Take it from me. It was, I know a lot about flatbeds. So that's thing number 1, invest in bettering yourself, and also not just educationally, but, physical health, mental health, everything. No one's going to come do it for you. Or if they do, you're going to be waiting forever. So that's probably my first piece, because the thorn in the rose, I needed the thorn. I had no business doing what I was doing. I don't know how I walked in and made a pipeline like that happen. I had no education. I hadn't done the work. So, do that is probably my biggest one. And then on the same note, flip side of that coin, don't let perfect get in the way of good enough. When I was so hurt and broken from that experience, I turned down a lot of opportunities saying, I'm not qualified. I'm not the right person. Because I was looking at it through the lens of someone who lost something, someone who made a mistake. And so I turned down a lot of great opportunities because I wasn't ready yet. You're probably never ready. So as long as you do the work every day, invest in yourself, do the training, go after it, because everyone is thinking they're not as ready as you. And it's the person who says, hey, I could do that, who will. So invest in yourself and don't let perfect get in the way of good enough.
And what's that old adage? Comparison is the thief of joy. And I find that that's where people really struggle on the perfectionist scale. Like, that person's a top performer. I need to be exactly like that person. And here's the thing. We all cross the finish line differently. You might be wearing Brooks. I might be wearing Nikes. Person down the street might be wearing Sauconys. We still cross. We just have different styles. And that is okay. So Connor Bush, I just love that you showed up. You leaned in. You peeled back the layers. You made it easy to understand. You win the day. Oh, and for anybody listening, we all need to give Connor the biggest virtual hug because he's not feeling well today. And you still showed up. You still showed up. You still leaned in. You still shared some serious wisdom with us. And for that, I am truly grateful. And, here's the deal. That is exactly what this show is all about. And I thank you for that, because here's the thing. We all do these things in one way, shape, or form. These are all things that I've gone through, that many people, if not all people listening, have gone through or will go through. And it's not meant to scare anybody, but it's just the hard facts of being in sales. When you deal with other people, we can't control people. We can only control ourselves. When you deal with other people, sometimes things go awry. It's how we pick ourselves back up, pull ourselves back up, and keep it trucking. Pun intended, Connor. How about that one?
That was a good one. I like that. Amen. I may not keep it trucking anymore in real life, but I'll keep it trucking figuratively.
That's okay. You know what? It's the figurative form of the thing here. And I thought I was, so hilarious saying that.
That was perfect.
But, that is really what this is about. And we all screw up in life, in sales. And it's those moments where I really feel like we learn the most. So for that, I am grateful that you showed up, even when you weren't feeling your best, to share in such a remarkable way. For anybody listening, thank you. Thanks for joining us. There's going to be more goodness coming up on the next episode. Connor, as we wrap this up, and anybody listening might be like, oh, I'm going through that same thing right now. How can people find you that want to get to know you better?
100%. The best place to find me is going to be linkedin.com/in/Connor Bush. That's CONNOR Bush, BUSH. Best place to find me. I respond overly quick. My wife hates it. I'm always on my phone, but that's where you can find me. So any questions? Yeah, if you want to talk sales, Thursday night sales, sales fails, or craft beer, you included, Amy, feel free to message me about that. It's where you can find me.
Before we leave, what is your favorite craft beer right now? I was sipping on a lovely one the other night. So you gotta share for those craft beer aficionados here.
So I like to find and give a shot the most out of the way, tiny little fledgling guys just getting started. So right now I'm sipping on a delicious stout by my friends at Telco Brewing. If you're ever in the fun town of Santa Clarita and the Burbs, please look them up. But I drink seasonally. So right now I'm basic. I've got my pumpkin beers, my stouts, my porters. It's cozy season, even though it's 88 degrees here in LA. Still pretending it's fall.
I am, I'm a stout, porter, like heavier, the better kind of beer gal. And I drink that in the summer. So you know what? It's okay. No judgment. I have to send you this one that I was drinking. It's Nutter Butter Your Business.
Ooh, sounds fun. I'm intrigued. Send it my way.
So good. So for those of you that have joined us, that have spent time with us, we've covered it all. We went from trucking to training that has nothing to do with your job, to the power of a pipeline, to picking yourself back up, to move on, to craft beer. So Connor, thank you again. I appreciate you. For those listening, again, I hope it's helpful. And until next time, we're going to call it a wrap. You've been in sales. I've been in sales. And in sales, it's a journey where we all have stumbled. And it is in these moments where we grow the most. So for anybody listening, I hope that this was helpful. This has been a Sales Feed production. If you're not familiar with all the fun things that they have up their sleeve, check out salesfeedmedia.com.